do it line by line. So.
Yep.
Shoot. I had to go pick up my groceries at Target. My new favorite thing.
But you just have to deliver it.
Well, sometimes I do.
Curb stop, like the curb.
Yeah, you pull in and you say I'm here, and it's awesome.
We do that all the time. All the time.
It's awesome.
It works great.
Oh gosh, yes.
Your New Year's?
Good. Sounds good.
Good so far, 7 days in?
Yep.
Good.
It's that seat.
It's another died one. All
It's
right.
that seat. It happened to me last time.
I'd like to call the regular city council meeting for Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to the new year. First item up we have, are there any, we'll go ahead and have the oath of office. So turn it over to our city clerk. I was looking for the agenda thing here, so I guess don't need to do that yet.
Constitution of the United States and the state of Minnesota, and will faithfully discharge the duties of a member of the city council for the city of Rosemont, in the county of Dakota, in the state of Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability. So help me God.
Welcome back. Yeah, all right. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I'll move the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? We have the agenda this evening. First item up is presentations, proclamations, and acknowledgements. First one is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting Award. I'll turn this over to our Administrative Director, Tia.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The city staff submitted for the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting in June of 2024 for the city's 2023 audit. We were notified last week that we received it for the 28th consecutive year. It is a great achievement, demonstrates the diligence of our staff. So we're just beginning the 24 audit. We expect hopefully the same thing for the 24 audit, but exciting for the 28th year in a row. So that was all I have.
That's it.
Great hard work to our staff.
Yeah, just
Very thing, just
I'll
great hard
open
work.
I'll open up to council then to harass you.
Yeah, no, I was just, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say, this is one of those areas of just due diligence that, 28 years is phenomenal, but what you and your staff have done to really just set us up for success and set the residents up for success with all the different projects and all the different things that are going on and happening in the development in the city. Just very proud of you and very proud of your team, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Nope, thank you.
Congratulations
Congratulations.
very much.
Certainly appreciated, again, acknowledging your team and being able to model a lot of things going on currently, dealing with changes, and then the existing systems that are in place, and still recognizing 28 years is fantastic for for that whole department, as well as yourself leading them. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That completes item 3A. We'll move on to 4, response to public comment. This evening, I don't believe we have any, so we'll move on to item 5 for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak before us at this time may do so. Please come forward, state your name, address, and your comment. Seeing no one, we will consider the public comment closed, and we'll move on to consent agenda. This evening we'll have bill listings, minutes of the December 7th regular council meeting, the appointment of our acting mayor, designation of the official newspapers, naming of our depositories and financial institutions, annual electronic funds transfer authorizations, appointment of directors to the Dakota 911 Center, donation of the acceptance from the Hosanna Community Impact Team, an in-kind donation that was received, 2025 solid waste hauler licenses. We will have 6 residential, 5 construction, and 7 commercial in the community. 2025 community development block grant allocation representing $41,778, and the MnDOT agreement for for State Road 3, which is around the roundabout at the high school. So, anyone wish to pull anything for further discussion, comment, recognition? If not, someone like to entertain a motion for the consent agenda approval.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Tyson, second by Fresky. Roll, please.
Hessler.
Aye.
Semple.
Aye.
Weisenthal.
Aye.
Tyson.
Aye.
Brusky.
Aye.
And that completes item 6, consent agenda, 5-0, approved. This evening we have no public hearings, no unfinished business. We'll move to 9A, new business, establishing a cannabis and hemp business regulations. I'll turn that over to
Both of us.
both of you,
Yes.
our city clerk and development directors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is a continuation of a discussion that we've been having as a city, as most cities in Minnesota have been having for the past 6 or 9 months or so. Looking to establish cannabis and hemp business regulations. We'll give a little bit of an overview of kind of what we're here to talk about, what the council direction has been to staff so far, timeline, and then kind of steps moving forward. So I'm going to start us off here. So this is very much a tag team between myself and community development, as well as Aaron as our city clerk, to talk from both a licensing, regulatory, and kind of how we approach this here in Rosemount. So a little bit of a background. So this is all derived from Minnesota State Statute Chapter 342, which talks about establishing definitions, licensing parameters, and then our ability as a city to enable local controls over cannabis and hemp regulation. Part of the guidance we receive is via the state's Office of Cannabis Management. We'll call it OCM kind of for this presentation here. And as was a part of the original legislation, and the majority of cities took the state up on this, is that a moratorium had been in place until January 1st of this year, which has since just recently expired, which the idea was to give cities and city councils the time to discuss the topic, outline parameters for how we wanted to regulate it within each of our communities, and then put forth ordinance under review of both our city attorney and then guidance through the Office of Cannabis Management. Part of the wrinkle and kind of, the little bit of a lack of urgency that many cities have had on this is that it's not able to be enacted until the OCM actually finishes up the rulemaking and implementation from a state perspective. We can talk a little bit more about that here coming up, but you may have just seen in the news that their director at OCM just recently resigned again, so they have now another interim back in place that will be tasked with the rollout of this across the state. So what we'll talk and focus largely on tonight is Rosemount, our regulations draft ordinance provided, and then next steps from there. And then the draft ordinance that is included in the packet for this evening was provided via our city attorney, who is here this evening to help us with any questions that may arise. And that was at direction of city council and then staff direction as well. So there's been a number of meetings with city council that have taken place, talking about everything from public use to what our local control should look like, and the direction that staff and our attorney has received from city council kind of put into 3 buckets here. So essentially allow us to establish a limited number of licenses, again, based on that state statute, based on our population of 1 per 12,500. The current interpretation of that would mean that Rosemount would have 3 licenses available should we choose to enact that portion of ordinance here. And then there are some buffering allowances that are allowed for there. You can kind of select what you want to do and how you want to approach that. And the direction was to establish a buffer around schools of a maximum allowance of 1,000 feet. And then I'll show a map here on the next one, kind of what that looks like here in Rosemount. And then also aligning our operating regulations, again, via state statute, but largely trying to align them with how we regulate liquor operations here in town. And then overall compliance with state law. So I mentioned the school buffer, 1,000 feet from a school, K-12. Here's a map that our GIS team had put together, and this was also seen previously at a work session, so this is not new news, but just to acknowledge that it does incorporate the new middle school that's under construction, as well as the new elementary off of Bon Air and Akron that's finishing up construction. So just kind of, it doesn't incorporate everything, but it does take up a fair amount of real estate here in town where those buffers would be enacted. I think I turn it over to Erin from there.
Absolutely. So I'll discuss the next steps here. So as we had mentioned, the next steps would incorporate enacting the ordinance that was included in your packet this evening, which would be establishing the cannabis and hemp business regulations. This would then become in effect as soon as the ordinance is published, which would likely be the January 17th, should it be approved here this evening. Next, we will look to await further rulemaking and clarification from the OCM. So as Adam had mentioned as well, there's a little bit longer delay as we can anticipate with the new director coming into play here in the next coming weeks. And then next, most importantly, I think it's important to note that the city has the ability to modify this ordinance in the future should there be a need to provide extra regulations, clarifications. I mean, just as we learn more about the new guidance with the OCM, as well as we learn more just going through the process with getting potential licensing. It's just important to know that at any point in time, we can look to amend the ordinance as needed. It would just be a simple amendment that would bring back forth in front of the city council. So with that, the recommended action before the city council here this evening is a motion to adopt an ordinance establishing cannabis and hemp business regulations and approve a resolution for summary publication that would be included in our newspaper. So with that, we can stand with any questions you may have, and as well our city attorney is here too.
I'll open up the floor to council. Any questions for staff or legal counsel?
So just to be clear, if there is a business that wanted to go forward, they can do so now? Or are we still in a holding pattern until the OCM establishes all of the rules?
Correct. So once the OCM provides additional guidance, then us as staff can also further determine our process here. So as Adam had mentioned, we'll try and do a similar guidance as we do with our liquor regulations. It's also important to note that if there was someone who was interested in applying, they would first reach out to the state first. The state would go through the approval process, flush it out that way, and then based upon their guidance and potential approval, then they would submit it to the city then for our review and approval, and then additionally, then it goes back to the state again for final inspection and review.
Council member.
So just for clarification, we're doing this today, or you're asking this recommended action because the moratoriums run out more than anything else. It doesn't mean that this is all of a sudden, open. So,
Correct.
Okay. So they still have to go through the state, and the state's just lost their director, so they're working through a lot of stuff. So this is just kind of us taking the next step because that moratorium ran out. And so we're just sticking to the guidelines that were already set in previous administration.
That is correct.
And
Okay.
the other way to look at it too, council member, is that this is also establishing Rosemount's kind of baseline regulations for how we are choosing to incorporate and regulate it here. So not just from a resident perspective, but also from the industry perspective. So there's plenty out there, and we've been contacted by at least a couple that just said, hey, when you guys have your base ordinance in place, let us know, because then it helps them as a larger industry determine how and where they want to start pursuing licensing within any number of communities in the entire state. So if you have some cities that say, we're not going to put a limit on it, that's maybe a different narrative than here where staff is proposing that we enact the 1 per 12,500, limiting us to 3. So
Gotcha.
companies out there making different types of real estate decisions based on some of these parameters that cities are putting in place.
So the 3, but then also with the caveat that they can't go within 1,000 feet of schools as well. So that's all established, and that's what this does.
Yeah, we're
Right.
laying the groundwork and providing the base rules for everybody.
Councilmember.
Just get clarification on the 3 licensed establishments that we're obligated to allow at least 3, right? We don't have the option to restrict to 0, right?
That is right.
The state requirement says we're obligated to have 3 because it's rounding up for every 12,500
Correct.
residents. Okay, just make sure the community is aware of that we don't have an option to not allow less.
Yeah, zero.
Zero.
You can't ban,
Yep.
couldn't ban the businesses,
Yep.
but you
Yep.
can limit the number,
Right.
Okay.
And that's the act that we're looking at here.
Yep.
right? Okay.
Thank you.
You have any-
Nothing additional.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate it, and from council there, by doing this, we're meeting our obligation, but we're actually required by the state to take some action or just have it, no ordinance, and whatever the state would say, then that's what we would have, or are we obligated to make an ordinance as well?
So the state will do the licensing, as staff has described, and then the cities are required to register the businesses. So there is a requirement to have an ordinance for the registration process, which is what this ordinance does.
And offhand, do we know how the other communities in Dakota County are coming around this issue as well?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, we do know, we've got a spreadsheet of kind of where they're all at. I don't think any of the 3 of us have it memorized tonight, but like we've been tracking that and talking amongst each other. And I would say it's safe to say that the majority of the major cities in Dakota County have stuck with the maximum. A couple have said no maximum, which is the other option for the city to take, but most have stuck with the 12.5 and then just doing the math from there. And then some have done the buffers as well.
And Mayor, if I could add also, along with the registration, one of the key components of this is also doing the compliance checks for those businesses. So that's also something that is a responsibility of the city that goes along with the registration process.
So these checks would be similar to what we do for tobacco,
Correct.
for liquor, underage drinking,
That's correct.
or purchase, I guess.
So one follow-up is that if this commission brings in a new director and they have stricter guidelines or anything like that, we could change this as well?
Correct. At any point in time, if there's any direction that we want to change within the ordinance, we have the authority to amend it. As
Okay.
long as we're obviously, of course, still following any state guidelines.
Yeah,
State-
everything is based on state statutes. Because it's in the rulemaking process, which is then being done through the agency, it's subject to interpretation or potential legal challenge. This is at least letting us have that kind of that baseline in place, so that if there's a different interpretation that comes down as the state is going through their licensing program, now we're able to fairly readily incorporate it into anything that we choose to versus having to rework the entirety of kind of what we put in place based on maybe a different perception or something else.
Thank you.
And then regarding the 1,000 feet buffer, how did we land on that as a determination?
That's the maximum via state statute that can be enacted for schools.
Okay, so even as a city body, as a municipal, this is the most that we could have, or most restrictive, I guess.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Thanks.
All righty. Any other questions or comments? All righty. Since I feel like we're in a little bit of a pickle, since we can't do a whole lot because the state's mandated this, someone like to move the motion to adopt the ordinance?
I'll move to adopt an ordinance establishing cannabis and hemp business regulations and approve a resolution for a summary publication.
Second? Anyone?
I'll second.
Motion by Essler, second by Fresky. Roll, please.
Klimpel. Aye. Weisenthal.
Aye.
Tyson.
Aye.
Fresky. Aye. Essler.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving forward to announcements, city staff updates. Mr. Martin.
Mayor, thank you. I think I didn't have anything for tonight. Beginning of the year, we're kind of fresh off of the holidays, so nothing on our end tonight.
All righty. Anything from council regarding any updates from them? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and talk about community. So give me a moment here. Here we go. All righty, so the 7th. All right, so the next item up for us is the 20th of January, Martin Luther King Day. The city hall will be closed. Our next Port Authority meeting is January 21st, 2025 at 6 to 7 in the city chambers. And our next city council meeting will be on January 21st as well from 7 to 8 o'clock. And with that, if there's no other business to come before us this evening, I move to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.